Hi viewers, this is Salahuddin with lecture number 28 and lecture number 27 in the treaty upward series. We talked about in detail of that regarding that treaty which ended the American War of Independence. We also talk about the clauses of that treaty, and today's topic is effects and importance of American War of Independence. After this topic, we will talk about the causes of the failure of the British. And before going to that topic, we need to talk about this important topic. What were the impacts of the American War of Independence? So we will try to cover this topic in detail and its impact throughout the world on some great parts of Europe. So we will talk about in detail about the impacts of the American War of Independence. Let me give you a brief overview of this topic. If you want to write down the important points, so I am telling you the important points, and you may write it, note it in your notebook. So later on we will come to explain each topic in detail. So let me tell you a brief overview of this important topic. Effects on England. So in effects on England, we have commercial loss. Second is loss of prestige and power of England. The third is in the personal rule of George III, and fourth is rise of the new colonial policy. Fifth is new colonies. Now coming to the effects on France. So the first one is regaining lost prestige. Second is war become an important cause of French Revolution. The third is war led to bad financial conditions. And the third is effects on Ireland. We will talk about in detail. Effects on Spain, and effects on America, and effects on the world, and on the entire globe. This is why this topic is very important, because it left no corner to inflict its impacts over there. So coming to the point, what were the effects of American War of Independence on England? When America got freedom from England, so England was inflicted with the following losses and with the following effects. The first one is commercial loss. In commercial loss, it was a kind of severe setback for England, because English used to import raw materials from there, and the raw material of England was of great importance for England, and the raw material of America, those were very of high quality. So the first loss was inflicted in the form of commercial loss, where the import of raw material was banned, and this was really a great and severe setback for the commercial activities of England. And the second important impact in commercial loss, the loss is while the raw materials that they would import from England, and there in England they would furnish it into to final products, are the goods which could be now ready for use. So they also lost that target market where they would sell out their those important good stuffs that were made from the raw materials imported from England. So this is how the first effect on England was in the form of commercial loss. Second is loss of prestige and power. So loss of Florida and Monarca inflicted great loss to prestige and power. So these two colonies, once the America was declared as an independent state, in according to the Treaty of Versailles, these two important colonies or these two important states were still under the control of England. But when England felt that they are not in a position to remain in contact with these colonies, thus these two colonies were also lost, which greatly humiliated the British and the English people. So thus their loss of prestige and power was another effect as a result of the American War of Independence. The third one is the end of personal rule of George III. The responsibility was thrown on him and his personal rule ended. When this war was fought, and it was not all of a sudden the war was erupted and concluded as a result of a treaty. It was a long struggle for the Americans and those 13 colonies of America. And George III was ruling in this meantime. His rule started in 1760 and lasted till the American War of Independence. So the responsibility of this defeat was thrown on the shoulders of the of George III, and thus the people also thought that the tentacles or the power of George III is increasing and had been increasing. So it needs a kind of check to restrict this unbridled power of George III. So people also become against George III, and thus his rule was also ended with the independence of the American colonies. So this was another effect where the rule of George III was ended. Fourth is the rise of the new colonial policy. To not lose the remaining colonies, policy was new policy was announced, and this policy was moderate and very much lenient, and granted political and economic facilities. As we talked about the old colonial policy in the previous lecture, that it was completely based on exploitation of the colonized and exploitation of the resources of those colonies, while this new policy was based on certain principle which was really flexible and moderate in its nature. So the new policy, and according to this new policy, they would not only exploit the natural resources, but along with all those exploitations, still there was exploitation, but along with that exploitation, they were granted certain rights like the political rights. They were given the right to vote, which we call it the suffragist right, and they were also given some facilitation in commercial interest and commercial activities. So this new policy was not only based on exploitation, but this policy was very much lenient, moderate in its nature, and this new policy also granted certain basic fundamental rights to the colonies which they had occupied afterward the independence of the USA, the 13 colonies of America. So these were the effects that were costed on England as a result of the American War of Independence. And now we will talk about the effects on France. Yes, I forgot the most important point. After loss, yes, the fifth one is the new colony. The first one, prior to this one, we talked about the rise of the new colonies, new colonial policy, and the fifth one is new colonies. So when the United States of America or the 13 colonies of America got independence, there were two problems for the English or for the Britain. The first one is how to compensate those who fought against the United States of America, the first one, and the second one, how to deal with those criminal and those prisoners that they would earlier send to America as a result of committing a crime or as a result of violating any state's law. So these two problems arise. So for the solution of these two problems, to deal with the prisoners and criminals and to compensate those who fought on the side of England against the 13 colonies of America, uh, for the solution of these problems, they discovered new colonies. And in those new colonies, the Australia and New Zealand, they were the two important resources which they had discovered after the American War of Independence. Which they discovered after the American War of Independence. Those who were guilty and were criminal, they would be sent to either Australia or New Zealand, while those who fought on the side of this was the first solution, and the second solution which they found is those who fought on the side of England against the 13 colonies of America. For that, those who were loyal to England, they would be sent to Canada. So thus these two problems which arise after the War of American Independence were resolved by discovering two other states in the form of Australia, and the second one is New Zealand. While those for the second compensation, those who were loyal to England, they would be sent to Canada. Thus, the new colonies were also discovered, and these were the effects of American War of Independence. The second is effects on France. So it also casted severe impacts on France as well. The first one is regaining lost prestige. Second one is war become an important cause of French Revolution. The third, war led to bad financial condition. How France regained his lost prestige. Got many colonies in Western India and West Indies, got Senegal and Africa, which at last is a result of 7 years war. So how France regained his lost prestige? As a result of this War of American Independence, which the French soldiers, the French state, helped the American people to fight against the English people or the English army. When the war ended, and as a result of Treaty of Versailles, France regained her lost prestige, because the fall of one power was ultimately the rise of another power. France earlier in the 7 Years' War was badly humiliated. His financial conditions were badly crunched and shattered. Now the British, they were defeated, so some compensation was paid to the French as well. Like they were given the right to establish or settle their colonies in India as well as in West Indies. And in the third colony which the French had established was in Africa, in Senegal. In that province, Senegal was snatched from the French people as a result of the 7 Years' War or the French people were defeated. Therefore, they had to leave the colony of Senegal. So, thus the province of Senegal or the colony of Senegal was given back to French. So, getting settlement in India and West Indies and Senegal. So, thus the prestige of France was elevated or get high. The second was war become an important cause of French Revolution. As I told you, the French people, they had to avenge the English people, where the French they were defeated in the Civil War. Now the French people were offering full support, full-fledged support to 13 colonies of America. Now, as the French army, they succeeded in defeating the British. They also thought that why not to defeat, why not to fight for themselves and get freedom from the tyrannical emperor of that time. So thus this thing in the mind of the French people instigated or revolted them to fight for their own freedom, and thus this fighting for American resulted in instigating the French people to seek independence from their tyrannical leadership, which was very much a kind of dictatorship and tyrannical rule. Therefore, this War of American Independence inculcated rebellious germs of the French Revolution, and thus the people revolted against the state authority and resulted into a French Revolution. The third is important effects on France is war led to bad financial condition. So crippled their economy. After fighting 7 years war, the economy of France was already shattered, and now they have to avenge the English people, the English army, in the 13 colonies of America. So fighting war in 13 colonies, and those 13 colonies against the English badly shattered the economy of France, which was already shattered as a result of the 7 years war. So the war led to the bad financial condition of France, was another effect of the American War of Independence. Now coming to the effects on Ireland. Irish, seeing English defeated, they can also achieve freedom. In 1782, England had to grant independent parliament to Ireland. Now the Irish people in Ireland saw the defeat of the English people or the English army in the 13 colonies of America. They also thought that why not to fight for themselves and seek independence from the English people, and they started their struggle to fight against the English and to seek independence of their own and to seek a separate country in the form of Ireland. So in this struggle keep on going till they were given the right in 1782 of an independent parliament by the British Parliament. So thus the gaining of an independent parliament was of course and really a great victory for the Irish people or for Ireland. So thus the American War of Independence also resulted in the separate country of Ireland, or separate country of separate parliament for the Ireland. So the American War of Independence gave rise to many more new states on the map of the world. Effects on Spain. Spain was also a great power at that time, and Spain got lion's share. She received commercial places like Florida and Monterey. So these two important places that were taken from the England, which earlier, according to the Treaty of Versailles, were given to England, but now, as a result of this war of independence, these two important commercial places, Florida and Monteria, they were given to Spain. So Spain also got a lion's share of commercial interest in the 13 colonies of America, and thus the economy of the France, the Spain was developed, the navy and the naval routes, and the Spain become a naval power at one stage at that time when her commercial activities were carried out through the sea, and these two important resorts, commercial resorts, Monteria and Florida, remain a hotbed for the Spain. Effects on America. There were two important effects on America. The first one is the establishment of an independent state in the form of United States of America. And the second important effect of the American War of Independence on America was the democracy replaced autocracy. And thus, for the first time, democracy, earlier there was democracy in England, but now the autocracy was replaced with democracy. So these two important effects on the America were witnessed as a result of the American War of Independence. So what were the effects of the American War of Independence on the world? So we will talk about the two important effects of the American War of Independence on the world. The first one was federal government was formed and all 13 colonies were put under the control of central rule. Second, written constitution. In the words are a written constitution. For the first time, federal government was established. In a federal government, the periphery or the constituent states were given under the control of a central authority, and all those remaining states, they were given under the control of a central authority. We have we have the federalism, where we have the federal government and we have the provincial government. So thus these two levels, where the federal was the central controlling all the peripheral or the provinces or the states. So the first time federal government was established in USA, and later on it was also copied or adopted by the rest of the countries in many parts of the in many countries around the globe. So the establishment of federal government was the one impact on the world, and second was the written constitution. Earlier there was no written constitution, and for the first time a written constitution was seen as a result of the American War of Independence. And in that written constitution, certain rules and regulations were laid down how to administer the country, how to administer the affairs of the country. And later on, this aspect means the written constitution was also occupied and followed by many countries of the world. So this is all about the effects and importance of the American War of Independence. We talked about the effects England, France, Ireland, Spain, America, and on the world. This part of the question is really important from examination point of view. And if there is any question or related to the aforementioned topic, so you must ask in the comment section and I will try my level best to answer your query. So thank you so much for watching the video.